I have to go. All right. I will call the 6:45 public hearing to order. This is an ordinance amending the special flood hazard area standards. We will start with roll call. Mr. Davidoff.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Councilor Blanks.
Present.
Mayor Cantor.
Here.
Councilor Cortez.
Here.
Councilor Fay.
Here.
Councilor McGinnis.
Here.
Councilor Poland.
Here.
Deputy Mayor Sweeney.
Here.
Councilor Winograd.
Here.
And Councilor Zdanowicz is absent.
Thank you, Mr. Davidoff. To you, Mr. Ledwith.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Good evening, everyone. Rick Ledwith, Town Manager. Tonight I'll be presenting an ordinance to amend the town's special flood hazard area standards to comply with a recent change in implementing a new requirement for Class 8 and above communities. This proposed amendment was discussed during the February Community Planning and Economic Development Committee meeting. And as the council knows, the town of West Hartford participates in the National Flood Insurance Program and enjoys a community rating system level 8 rating, which entitles residents who hold flood insurance with a 10% discount on flood insurance premiums. Today, we were informed that we have been recommended to move to a level 7 CRS rating, which would entitle residents to a 15% discount on flood insurance premiums. This is subject to the final approval from FEMA, but wanted to share the outstanding news during the hearing. The community rating system has been revised to increase the minimum standards for new construction and special flood hazard zones or substantial improvements to existing homes in a flood zone. Presently, our ordinance calls for the bottom of the lowest floor, including the basement, to be 2 feet above the base flood elevation. The change requires that utilities also be above the base flood elevation as well, and our ordinance was not specific to including the utilities, so the change now specifies utilities as well. This amendment is consistent with our planning, conservation, and development under our open space and environmental goal, and to continue to promote sustainable stormwater management and floodplain management to be resilient and adaptable to a changing climate. So that provides a summary of the change to the ordinance. Through you, Madam Mayor, I turn it over back to you and the council for any questions that you may have.
Thank you, Mr. Ledwith. Are there questions for the town manager? Okay, Ms. Fay.
Thank you, Mayor Cantor. Mr. Ledwith, what's the maximum discount in rating that you could possibly get on this relative to, I think you said 15%. Now we're at.
Yeah, so it's at 15%. It's a good question. I don't know, Dwayne, do you happen to, he may have that information. I'm sure it's class 1 and probably significant at that level, but.
It's 5% increments.
Okay.
So it goes up from there. I think it tops out around 45, but I might not be doing the math right. But in any event, it's 5% increments.
All right, 5% a year.
Okay.
level,
Are there anyone signed up? Mr. Dodge, do you want to check? And Mr. Davidoff, did anyone write in with comments?
Madam Mayor, we have received no written comments.
Thank you. No one has signed up to speak. Is there anybody here that would like to speak to this public hearing? Okay, I don't see anybody. All right, any other questions for Mr. Ledwith? Okay. Seeing none, I'm going to read into the record letter dated March 24th, 2023 from Town Planning and Zoning Commission recommending approval. Letter dated March 17th, 2023 from Capital Region Council of Governments finding no apparent conflict with regional plans and policies or the concerns of neighboring towns. If there is nothing further, this public hearing is adjourned and we will begin the next public hearing at the posted time of 6:55. That's 3 more minutes. No problem. Are you all set? Okay, great. All right, roll call, Mr. Davidoff.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Counselor Blanks,
Present.
Mayor Cantor. Counselor Cortez,
Here.
Counselor Fay,
Present.
Counselor McGinnis. Counselor Poland,
Here.
Deputy Mayor Sweeney. Counselor Winograd. Counselor Zdanowitz.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Davidoff. Mr. Ledwith.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, again. For the record, I'm Rick Ledwith, Town Manager, and I'll be presenting an amendment to the town's outdoor dining ordinance. This proposed amendment was discussed during the February Community Planning and Economic Development Committee meeting, and as the council knows, we've had an outdoor dining ordinance for the past 20 years. And our council at that time deserves credit for this ordinance because we would argue that the outdoor dining experience is one of the reasons why our town center and Blueback Square, as well as other parts of town, have become a regional destination for residents and visitors alike to enjoy our restaurants and shopping. Prior to the pandemic, our outdoor dining ordinance was tied directly to areas outside of the restaurant on sidewalks. Restaurants would apply for a special use permit and would be subject to a public hearing with our town's Planning and Zoning Commission. During the pandemic, the governor loosened local rules through an executive order which presented us with an opportunity to expand our dining into the street, which we have taken advantage of for the past couple of years. Those rules were further extended last spring under Public Act 22-1, which takes effect May 1st, 2023, and requires municipalities to allow outdoor dining as of right and to permit outdoor dining to public streets and sidewalks and any lots associated with the restaurant. So following the adoption of this ordinance, we will move to a site plan approval process, which would move us from the public hearing process to an administrative approval process through our planning division. We have amended 3 sections of our town code to accommodate the amended ordinance. We have section 177.37.2, which is the outdoor dining ordinance itself, and the 3 subheadings within section 1, space definition, operations, and maintenance. We have modified the language to include off-street parking and public right-of-way in section 1. Under space definitions, we have included more right-of-way language to be consistent with our intent. Under operations, we have added town planner or designee, as well as West Hartford Bloomfield Health District where appropriate, and have also added the prohibition of live amplified music so all diners can enjoy their experience. We also added all sound must comply with applicable sections of Chapter 123 of the Town Code, which addresses noise standards. Under maintenance, we have added the requirement that a maintenance plan must be submitted to the town planner, ensuring that the outdoor space remain clean and clear of litter, food scraps, used dishes, utensils, etc. There's also language allowing advertisements on umbrellas limited to one side and limited to a size of 18 inches in length and 12 inches in height, along with a duration permitted from April 1st to November 15th, with the flexibility that the town manager, after consultation with the Director of Public Works and the Director of Community Development, can modify or suspend such dates to the extent required by public interest. We also made slight modifications to Section 177-6C to add seasonal outdoor dining to the schedule of permitted accessory uses. And then again, it's on Section 155-26B, which is our permit required for street obstructions. Outdoor dining areas to include language allowing the Director of Department of Public Works to develop design guidelines for dining areas in the public right-of-way. We would also add language allowing the Town Council to establish a fee schedule for outdoor dining, which we are not recommending at this time. That concludes the ordinance changes. As the council knows, the ordinance was referred to the Town Plan and Zoning Commission and was adopted by a vote of 4-1. TPZ did oppose the advertisement language within the ordinance allowing advertising on umbrellas. and also asked us to provide more flexibility on the duration on a case-by-case basis. We do feel the current language as proposed in the ordinance has flexibility built in, but from our perspective, moving all of the outdoor furniture at the end of the fall, beginning of the winter, will prevent restaurants from storing their furniture outdoors all winter, accumulating snow and debris, and taking away from the overall character of the center, for example, on LaSalle and Farmington, and of course in other sections of town. So that concludes a summary of the ordinance changes. Through you, Madam Mayor, turn it back to you for
Thank
questions
you.
from the council.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Ledwith. This is something our restaurants have been very interested in making sure that we pass. As you heard, this is effective April 1, so we're already past the date of potential implementation of this expanded outdoor dining ordinance, and they are anxious, especially with weather like this, what we're seeing, that to make sure that they are enjoying whatever nice weather our nature brings us for this year. So, Mr. Dodge? No? Is there anybody here that would like to speak on this public hearing? And Mr. Clerk, have we received any written comments?
Madam Mayor, no written comments have been received.
Okay. All right, I'll open it up to Town Council if there's any comments or questions. Again, as Mr. Ledwith shared, we did discuss this in committee, and we have been actually working on this probably for a year on and off, but so it's something that we know well, and so I don't want you to think that people haven't looked at it and really researched it. So, all right. With that, I will read letter dated April 6, 2023 from Town Planning and Zoning recommending approval. Letter dated March 17, 2023 from Capital Region Council of Governments finding no apparent conflict with regional plans and policies or concerns of neighboring towns. I'll open it up again. Any questions, comments? All right, and with that, this public hearing is adjourned, and the next public hearing will start at 7:15 at the posted time, which is 12 minutes away, so don't go too far. I know, it's really warm. I I will call the 7:15 meeting public hearing to order. This is an application filed on behalf of Steele Road LLC, owner of 243 Steele Road, located within Special Development District, SDD, number 139. The application seeks permission to amend the existing SDD 190-unit multifamily residential complex. I will try to speak. Is that better? Better. I don't think we have a volume on this. All right, well, I will try to speak a little louder. 190 multifamily residential complex through the addition of a new building containing 18 units, along with associated parking, landscaping, and site amenity changes. Roll call, Mr. Davidoff.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Councilor Blanks.
Present.
Mayor Cantor.
Here.
Councilor Cortez.
Here.
Councilor Fay.
Here.
Councilor McGinnis.
Here.
Councilor Poland.
Here.
Deputy Mayor Sweeney.
Here.
Councilor Winograd.
Here.
Councilor Zdanowitz.
Thank you, Mr. Davidoff. We will begin with a presentation by the applicant.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, members of the West Hartford Town Council. My name is Jeff Sager. I'm from the Metro Realty Group. My business office is at 6 Executive Drive in Farmington. Oh, yes. Sorry about that. Can everybody hear me? Okay. Okay. Going to have a hard time reading. Okay. I'm joined this evening by Rock Edmond, our civil engineer from SLR. I'll raise my voice a little bit just to make sure everybody can hear. If anybody can't hear, just wave your arm and I'll be happy to repeat it. Mark Vertucci is here from Fuss & O'Neill. He is the traffic engineer. And then Chuck Corsi is here and he did our outreach. So you're looking at a slide, an aerial view of our clubhouse and the entrance to 243 Steele Road. Next slide, please. And we're here this evening to discuss the proposal for an 8th building at 243 Steele Road. That is a shot of our entrance drive at Steele Road. So, Madam Mayor, you are I think the only one on the council in 2016 when this site was originally approved. So I did want to spend a moment on history because I think it's helpful. So this was the building that previously occupied the site at 243 Steele Road. It was a convent operated by the Sisters of Mercy, constructed in 1960. And then it went through a series of changes. So in the 1970s, the upper floors were converted to an infirmary, and they ultimately included skilled nursing for 59 beds. And then in the 1980s and 1990s, the sisters began to explore closure of the building and repurposing of it through various renovations. Need me to pause? No? Yep. Then in 2004...
New town clerk, just saying, sorry.
You wanted to comment.
Continue, sorry.
Yeah. In 2004, the Sisters of Mercy decided to close Mercy Knoll and find alternate residences, both for the convent residents and for the nursing home patients. And then in 2006, Mercy Knoll closed, with the nursing home residents going to St. Mary Home. So that's the building at the corner of Albany and Steele. And the sisters going to convent space in Newington. And then from 2006 until 2016, the building sat vacant. And by the time we came along, it was in very much a state of grave disrepair. Could you go to the next slide, please? So then in 2016, this council approved 160 homes in 6 buildings, so approximately 25 homes per building. Next slide, please. And in 2018, this council approved the building 7, So you'll see that is in the northwest corner of the site, adjacent to the University of St. Joseph. Next slide, please. So in 2016, at the time of the initial application, there were concerns expressed by the neighborhood. I want to put them in two groups, one being what I'll call tangible, things you can touch, and one being the intangibles. So the first group of the tangible concerns, residents at Trumbull and Buckingham were most concerned about having adequate screening between our proposed development and their homes. The School for Young Children was concerned about adequate parking and safety of their staff and the students. The Steele Road residents were concerned about speeding on Steele Road. Stratford Road residents were concerned about cut-through traffic that would race down Stratford to connect to Albany. And folks in general were concerned about safe pedestrian access to Elizabeth Park. Next slide, please. So we introduced a number of improvements to attempt to mitigate these concerns, and they were as follows. We initiated a pedestrian walk phase at Elizabeth Park, so at the intersection of Steele and Asylum. Next, please. Stratford Road, with the approval of this council, is now a dead end. So there's no more cut through possible to Albany. Steele Road had a variety of traffic calming measures. You see the cobblestones there. The road was narrowed in parts. Next slide, please. And there was a flashing speed limit sign, which is still there today. You're looking north on Steele Road. And as it relates to the School for Young Children, the problem was, and this was a serious problem, that parents discharging the students, the parking on the campus at the school for the School for Young Children was used by the teachers arriving in the morning. So when parents would arrive to discharge their children, they couldn't park next to the building, so they parked on Steele Road. And that was very dangerous. There were oftentimes other children in the car. They had to walk up to the school in all sorts of weather conditions with oncoming traffic in both directions. So the remedy that we proposed and that we have constructed is 24 spaces at the very front of our site. So that's our site entrance there at the bottom of the screen, with 12 spaces flanking it on each side. And those are permanent spaces for the benefit of the School for Young Children. So long as that school is in operation, those spaces are there and reserved for their benefit. And what happens now is that the teachers park there, and we have sidewalks where they can then circulate to the school across the crossing on Steele Road. And that frees up the spaces adjacent to the school for the parents to be able to park their cars next to the building, and there's no more discharging on Steele Road. Next slide, please. So most of you probably know, but the School for Young Children is operated by the University of St. Joseph. And there are many occasions where teachers and students will walk between the two campuses, between the two buildings. You could leave the School for Young Children and walk up the Macaulay Site Drive, but when you got to the top of the site drive, there was no connection to the USJ campus. So we installed the bituminous sidewalk that you see in the picture on the right and located in the depiction on the left, which connected, so now students and teachers can walk from the School for Young Children to USJ, and that's another improvement that we did. Next slide, please. So to get to what I'll call the intangible concerns, so there was discussion of, renters versus owners, what does that mean? We have concerns about rowdy, noisy residents. We're concerned about the impact on neighborhood property values. We're concerned about a drain on town services and public schools. Next slide, please. So to the best of my knowledge, none of those concerns have come to pass. And the statistics I'd like to share with you will support that in part. So existing today is 190 apartment homes that are 100% occupied. There's a total of 280 residents at the community, of which 153 are female, 127 are male. We have 12 school-age children. Our median age is 35. Our median income for our one-bedroom home is $124,000. Our median income for our two-bedroom home is $172,000. It's not a densely populated community, so our occupants per bedroom is only 1.02. We have more empty nesters than I had projected. We're north of a third at 36%. I was thinking 20, 25%. In terms of where our residents are coming from, 43.5% come from outside Connecticut. 14% come from inside Connecticut, but outside Hartford County. We pay about $1,065,000 a year in property taxes. There's another $85,000 paid by our residents for personal property. Next slide, please. So I was before you a few weeks ago, and you approved a lot line revision, but I just wanted to review three things quickly. One is that no portion of the physical building we're proposing this evening is on land that was formerly owned or owned at all by Macaulay. Macaulay is receiving from us 2/3 of an acre. We are receiving from them 1/3 of an acre. And importantly, Macaulay recaptures its site drive. Next slide, please. So why are we proposing an 8th building or 18 more homes at 243 Steele Road? So aside from 3 weeks ago when I was here, I was last before this council in 2018. And the real estate market then was that the backdrop was that residents struggled to sell their homes. A popular narrative was millennials don't want to live in Connecticut, that the suburbs are dying, that young adults prefer to be in a city. Next slide, please. Then you have the pandemic in 2020. Residents now can sell their homes, but they need a place to downsize. Employees are now working from home. So we're beginning to see an influx of adults from cities, the opposite of what the narrative was, into central Connecticut, many finding their way to West Hartford, finding their way to our community. Adults already renting in central Connecticut, since they were now spending so much time at home, decided to upgrade to better apartments, more space, they wanted more amenities. Next slide, please. So that is a very different fact pattern than existed last time we were here in 2018, and I would submit to you it just wasn't foreseeable. And since 2020, since the pandemic, we have consistently managed a waiting list for 50+ homes at our development. So at any point in time, the people may come and go on the waiting list, but the waiting list is always north of 50+ homes. And I am here tonight because we would like to address some of that housing need, and we would propose to do so by reinvesting in our community, reinvesting in West Hartford. So the proposed building of this application is comprised of 18 homes, 10 one-bedrooms, 8 two-bedrooms, 10 garages, an elevator building. We're proposing 5% be affordable at 80% of area median income. The building, as you can see from this depiction, and where's my pointer? Building 8 on the right. Okay. I actually do have a point. I just take attendance here. Building 8 is located on the northern boundary of 243 Steele Road, and that's our common boundary, of course, with the Macaulay. The building is set back 450 feet from Steele Road. The building style and architecture is identical to the existing buildings. The proposed building is smaller. It's about 2/3 the size. So you know that we have a lot line agreement with Macaulay, but I'd like to go over with you some other understandings that we have with them. So for construction, access to Building 8, the closest point is to come in the Macaulay Site Drive to access Building 8 during construction. Now, that is currently our property, and we're, allowed to do that, but notwithstanding, we've gone over this with Macaulay in great detail. We would go in from Steele Road, which is over on the right, and then when we get to this point here, we would be, cutting into the hill, but using that as our access for Building 8. We believe that is the shortest distance, it passes the fewest pedestrians, and we think it's the safest access for the site. We have agreed with the Macaulay that we will reconstruct this road in this area that I'm showing here, and I'll go over the specification of that in a moment. Could you go to the next slide, please? So we have worked extensively on this proposal with our neighbor to the north, the Macaulay, meeting with them, the administration there, several times, a couple of times in the field, a couple of times in their office with our landscape architect. We have come up with what we believe is a very robust screening and planting plan. So you have the colored image on top, down below it you have kind of more detail. But in any event, you've got a very extensive planting plan which they are satisfied with. There's 50 trees, of which 38 are evergreen. 38 are evergreen, 12 are deciduous. We have 99 evergreen shrubs, 102 perennials, and 84 grasses. So again, the Macaulay would be up in this area here, and they are the closest neighbor, and this screening was done with their advice for their benefit. Next slide, please. So when we did the outreach, we heard that some of the residents at the Macaulay would like to see wildflowers in the area I was just showing you. So, and I think you got written correspondence to that effect as well. And please keep in mind that what I need to do is coordinate with the administration. So when a resident has a suggestion, we take it to heart, we handle it respectfully, but ultimately it's the decision of the administration. And as you can see, we've done very considerable landscape plantings and bufferings that we worked out with them. But I did inquire of our landscape architect if it made sense to integrate wildflowers into that plan. And he said he did not think it was a good idea. He thought that they'd have a good year or two and that would be the end of it. And the reason for that is that the land is facing north, and the Macaulay encouraged maximum screening, which as a completed condition is going to have a lot of shade. So the wildflowers, they want to be in open sunlight, they want to be in an open field. They're not going to do well there. Now, having said that, they're not expensive. If people want them to go in, we can put them in. But that's the due diligence that I've performed so far. As it relates to the specification on the road that I referred to earlier, there had been concern that we were just going to top coat it. That is not the case. Our intention has always been to rebuild it. Now, rebuilding a road can mean a lot of different things, so I want to go through that in some detail. So we will reclaim the existing asphalt that's there today. We'll regrade and roll that material. We'll apply a 2.5-inch binder course of bituminous concrete and an 1.5-inch top course. There isn't any curbing proposed, and the only curbing there today is 150 feet of concrete curbing, which would remain in place. If there's any excess material on site, we will haul it off, and we will reestablish the shoulders of the road. The distance, linear feet that we're talking about, 24-foot wide road, is 473 feet, and that was in the depiction I showed you earlier. Next slide, please. I do also want to point out on this topic that DRAC had specifically reviewed it and spoke to it in the approval. And my reading of that is that they're quite satisfied with the quality, the quantity. They like the variation that we're showing between shade, flowering, etc. You know, I think our site always looks great. This will certainly be consistent with that. The area will be irrigated. So, next, please. I would also like to spend a moment just to mention that these will be Energy Star homes. So our doors and windows, our insulation, our appliances, our lighting, hot water heating, most importantly, the air sealing on the outside of the building will need to pass a blower door test. We retained a professional to come in and audit this. Our HVAC, not just the material, but the entire assembly, and water-saving fixtures in our faucets, our toilets, our showers. So during construction, and this is with guidance from Macaulay, we're proposing to commence at 7:30 in the morning, and that is consistent. The reason they gave us that guidance is that is consistent with the people that do their lawn when they arrive with their blowers and their mowers. And there was concern expressed about parking, so we are not utilizing any Macaulay land for parking during construction. Next slide, please. There was some health district correspondence. They want an assessment by a licensed pest control company. That's fine. They want a pest management contract. That's fine. They inquired about the dumpster adequacy. We have 6-yard containers. That's what we keep on site. They're picked up 8 times a month. That's roughly twice a week. We have recycling in 4 containers that are picked up twice weekly. If for any reason that was ever deficient in any fashion, we would simply have them picked up more frequently. Next slide, please. We received a letter from Todd Dumais that's probably in your packet as well, advising us that there's a separate lot line revision application. He cites a section of the code, says it's outside the SDD process, so we need to fill that out, submit it to him before we would take any action relating to tonight's application. Next slide, please. This is a rendering of the building. From where I'm standing, it looks a little odd, but in any event. So it's the same materials that exist out there today. A generous application of masonry, horizontal lap siding. You see the garages, the plantings, 3-story building, decorative dormers. Next slide, please. So I'm about to introduce Rock Edmonds, who's from SLR, and he's our civil engineer. Our traffic engineer is here. I know you got the report. I'm happy to have him present if you need him to present. He's also happy to just answer questions, so you folks can make that decision. And that's it for now. Thank you. Rock Edmonds.
Thank you. For the record, Rock Emmond, E-M-O-N-D, from SLR International Corporation out of 99 Realty Drive, Cheshire, Connecticut. I'm Associate Civil Engineer. So obviously we're talking about Building 8 over at 243 Steele Road. Just some technical details I just want to go over. So with the land swap, we're looking at about 15.39 acres that are going to be total on the property. Of that 15.39 acres, we're looking at this very small kind of nodule. So one of the reasons why you kind of look at one of these projects, specifically a project like this, is, it's adaptive reuse essentially, because what you're doing is you're taking a piece of your property and molding it and sculpting it to essentially bring new use to it, as well as just using best management practices to allow for minimal impacts. So specifically as it relates to the building itself, there was a specific rendering that was shown that shows the entire development. And this specific building is located on the essential north side of this. So what's going on is you have the surrounding buildings going around, and then this particular building occupying this particular space. The amount of disturbance for that is about a half to an acre. I think it comes out to specifically, which I have the number for you right here. It comes specifically at 1.3 acres of total disturbance. So 1.3 acres over a 15-acre site, 15.39 acres. That's really not that much when it comes to actual disturbance. So really, when you're looking at that kind of volume, it's one of those kind of white glove scenarios where you're massaging the area to make sure that there's minimal impact to those that are actually living in the development. As Jeff had noted, there's 190 units that exist on this site. 100% are occupied. The idea to build another building is to make it as minimal impact to those people's daily lives as possible. So that's why that, if you can see the site plan before you, it's actually really good planning in my opinion, because what's happening is, and it's kind of hard to see, but there's a significant grade change between the top and bottom of these two areas. And what's happening is the building itself is being keyed in to that site. So there's a retaining wall that's going to be kind of on the back of the building. The first floor is at grade with the surrounding apartment buildings, and the back of the property actually extends at the second floor, the Macaulay side, and that is the high side. So it's essentially keyed into the site itself, which once again is kind of a best management practice to kind of create a very minimal impact to, one, constructability, and two, just to utilize the existing site the best that it can be, because you're going to be looking at major export and regrading if you were going to be doing anything more substantial. As it relates to parking, as you can see on this kind of plan, the building itself is flanked by two sets of parking areas, the north side being 15 spaces, the south side being 14 spaces, and then interior, as Jeff notified you, is there are 10 internal garages, so that's a total of 39 total. Existing today, there are 21 spaces that were occupying that space, so obviously there's a net gain of, I think it's 18 if I did my math right. With regard to that, the existing unit or space per unit would be existing 1.6, and we're going down to 1.52, so a very minimal impact. The requirement for this would be 1.5, so obviously we were meeting the requirement. In relation to that, the development itself, specifically in relates to Building 8, with respect to utilities, once again, kind of good site planning. The accessibility to the existing utilities is very readily available. So where you kind of see where there's islands that are extending from the fingers of the building, that's exactly where water, gas, and sewer are readily available. Due to the obviously increase in impervious, approximately 0.43 acres of increase in impervious over the original or the existing. We're mitigating that with best management practices, such as, and what we're proposing today is an underground detention system, which is comprised of 18 Old Castle Storm Capture SC2 units. Man, I got it right. Prior to those, we are also providing water quality through the use of hoods and deep sumps. So per the DEP manual, you need to provide certain measures to provide additional water quality. Existing today, you can see in the top right of this document, there's an existing detention basin that was done with the overall project in 2016 and then updated in 2018 with Building 7. There's an existing vortex unit, which is what's called a hydrodynamic separator. So it essentially treats water quality and takes out all the pollutants and all the particulates for about 80% of total suspended solids. That meets and exceeds the requirements that we would actually need for this. There were correspondences between myself and town engineering staff regarding the usage of the existing vortex unit. We provided them with calculations that show that we are meeting and exceeding the water quality flow for this development as a whole with this particular existing unit. So by adding the additional impervious, it's still doing A-OK. In relation to that, we also received notification that the engineering department we've addressed all their comments adequately. So, yay me. With regard to just erosion controls, so obviously there's going to be 1.3 acres of total disturbance. So best management practices is to utilize different types of erosion controls, such as sediment filter fence, which is typical. You'll see it pretty much anywhere. There's also inlet protection, so maintaining that you're going to be keeping any kind of hard solids away from the catch basins themselves. The beauty of actually connecting to an existing development is that the existing hydrodynamic separator would most likely assist in also providing E&S controls if there was ever particularly a break during construction. So there is kind of a belt and suspenders approach incidentally because it's a development that already exists. So that's always fun. And that's, just one last thing. So there's an existing dumpster that is being relocated. It's really just turning 90 degrees. So if you look kind of on the right of the building, this allows for the trash pickup to, one, maintain kind of the already agreed upon location, as well as allow for a easier truck maneuver to just come right in, pick it up, back up, go out, leave. Nobody's ever the wiser. I think I'm good. So I'll go to the traffic. As Jeff had mentioned, yep. Oh, here we go. Oh, you just want to go here? Oh, hey, community outreach. Thank you, Claude.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and members of the Town Council. My name is Chuck Corsi. I live at 21 Walbridge Road in West Hartford. I've been retained by Mr. Sager to do neighborhood outreach for this project, as I did in 2016 and 2018. You should have before you or in your packet my outreach report that was submitted last week. I just want to draw your attention to one change. It's not a big one. If you look on page 11, 248 Steele Road, Mr. John Loveshewitz. I received a returned email back from him about the screening that he asked for across the street from his house, and it was just a very short thank you for accommodating his request. They're going to be adding some screening. If we can go to the next slide. So the outreach area, and again, if you can't hear me, please let me know. Outreach area is similar to what we did the last two go-arounds. Here you see the site on Steele Road, Albany Avenue, Steele Road. Outreach area included Stratford Road, Steele Road, Buckingham and Trumbull Lanes, the University of St. Joseph, and also the Mercy Community, Trinity Health, our neighbors. So everyone within this block that shown on the screen. You should have in your packet a letter of support from Rona Free, the president of University of St. Joe's, representing the college and the School for Young Children, as well as from the director of Trinity Health, representing the Macaulay and St. Mary's. Madam Mayor, you should have also received a late letter from Chris Conway at the chamber. I believe that was emailed to you within the last hour. Their executive committee met this morning and voted unanimously to approve support for this project. So, and he had a busy day, and he apologized for not getting that to us sooner. Just want to make sure that gets into the record. One other thing I want to say before I get into some of the details of our meetings, my client, Mr. Sager, is one of the things he forgot to mention when he was going through those off-site improvements, and I think it's very important that we get this on the record, is that none of those were paid for with taxpayer dollars. Those were all, whether we're talking about dead-ending Stratford Road, the traffic calming on Steele Road, the parking for school for young children, the new sidewalks, the pedestrian signals, making the access to Elizabeth Park safer. Those were all paid for by the developer, Mr. Sager, and that tallied just under $1 million in off-site improvements. Mr. Murphy might tell me otherwise, but I don't believe that any developer has done that much off-site improvements as Mr. Sager did on this original project. He definitely is a man who keeps to his word and does what he says. If we can go to our next slide. So we had 3 meetings, and again, you'll see in your packet the letters that we sent out to folks. Our first meeting was a meeting of the residents of Steele Road. They had, many questions that you or I would have, very understandable and important questions. Mr. Sager has touched on a lot of these in his response to those. A lot of them focused on noise, parking. I would say probably one of the things that brought the most discussion was once the project is done and keeping their parking space proximity to their unit. There is more than adequate parking on the space. That has been shown throughout. But people like to be able to park as close as they can to their unit. That is still going to be the case. The parking for the new units, as well as parking that is there now that serves other areas, there is going to be reconfiguration in addition. So residents are going to be able to be as close to their units now as after construction as they are now. Yes, I just wanted to go through all these things. Yes, Jeff had responded to all of those. If we can go to the next slide, please. We also had a wonderful meeting with the residents at the Macaulay. Again, these things are all things that Jeff had talked about. But again, if I was to pinpoint one of the things that folks really focused on is the sight lines. This building is going to be closer than the existing buildings are to Macaulay. But again, residents at the Macaulay, wherever you are on the Macaulay grounds, you are not going to see the first 2 floors of this new building because it's built into that hill that gradually goes up. On top of that hill, you're going to have the screening that's there. So the visibility, it's not on the Macaulay property, obviously, and it's going to be very heavily buffered. Again, as Mr. Sager has done for the residents of Trumbull and Buckingham in the past. They also, I thought this was nice and it's an excellent idea, once it's done, the residents asked if they could have a tour. There is a lot of synergy there. I mean, it's wonderful the way that Jeff and his staff keep in touch with the folks at the Macaulay, because his community obviously could be an excellent transition place for folks who may not be ready for the Macaulay and vice versa. So they would like to have a tour. We've also found, if we talk about the waiting list, I can tell you that there are people on the waiting list that live on Stratford Road, and some of those folks, you might recall, Mayor, were here in 2018 and weren't particularly happy about it. This has been, well, let me go to the next slide because I want to wrap up with this. We also had a meeting with, invited all the neighbors on Steele, Stratford, Buckingham, Trumbull. We had just a couple of folks come. But the one question that they asked, and it's a good question, is why do you need more units? Why are you back again more units? I think Jeff answered this question already, but if you'll indulge me, I'll kind of give my take on this. It's whether you think this project, this community, is a burden or a benefit for West Hartford. Clearly, when the first time we came around, we heard a lot from folks that thought this was going to be a terrible burden on the town. That hasn't proven out. It's, you take a piece of property that 10 years ago had sat untaxable for half a century. Now it's adding to the vitality of our community and adding to our tax base. It's also, if you look at all the other wonderful communities that are coming to West Hartford, and this council in its work has seen fit to approve many of these. This is different. It's not better, but this is different and really markets itself to a different customer. A lot of the ones that we see in the center, on Park Road, over by Corbin's Corner, those are for people that really want to be close to restaurants. They want to be able to walk to those attractions. They're more dense communities, and that's the lifestyle they want. Personally, it's something that I would probably like, when the time that comes. What Steele Road, 243 Steele Road does is it's a more suburban, less dense, open, people don't move to Steele Road because they want to walk to Bricko. They move there because they want the quiet of the neighborhood. They want something that resembles their previous home more than something maybe that, the great places, the great places that we'll find here in the center or on Park Road. So, that's why, he's building. Obviously, he wants to make his product even better. But going back to what we just heard about the engineering, this is a sustainable proposal because we're not talking about having to go into a brand new site, have to put brand new utilities in, brand new water, brand new disruptions. All the utilities are there. Everything is there to make this a seamless transition into the new addition to the community. So with that, I'm more than happy to answer any questions. As Jeff had said, we also have our traffic engineer with us tonight. I always love to hear a good traffic engineer story, but you may feel different. He can be available for questions, Mayor, or else he can go through his presentation right now.
Thank you, Mr. Corsi. I think questions will be fine.
Excellent. Excellent. So I'll turn it over to Jeff.
Thank you, Chuck. So, may I get the next slide, please? So just to conclude, it'll be hard to state it more eloquently than Chuck just did, but I would say that in support of this application, I would offer you the following in conclusion. That I think it makes sense to prioritize smart, sustainable development that leverages existing infrastructure. So here, the utilities, the access drive, the maintenance facilities, the common amenities, they're all there. This development, as proposed, is significantly less dense than the recently approved or proposed residential communities. There are over 30 existing residential communities within West Hartford that are more dense than what it is that we're proposing. Can I have the next slide, please? So I just want to go for a minute through the zoning data table on some of the high points. So the density that we're proposing at the end of the day is 13.5 units per acre. So if you look at the underlying zone, which is RM-MS, the lot area per unit that's required is 1,000 square feet. We're proposing 3 times that lot area. The maximum FAR is 1.25. We're proposing 0.43. The maximum lot coverage, 40%, we're down at 15.1. We have almost 7 times as much usable open space than the zone requires. We are less than half of the maximum height that's permitted within the zone. The parking is slightly more than required. And the units per building is less than half of what is required within the zone. So, again, as Chuck said, and not just because I'm an advocate of the development, I honestly, truly believe that this is a resource for the town of West Hartford. So why do I say that? Because I know on that waiting list, our most popular home is the large 2-bedroom home with an elevator, with a garage. And I know that the profile of that customer is typically downsizing from a West Hartford home. They've sold a single-family home. They want to stay in the community. They need a place to go. Exacerbating the shortage is that those that move in tend to stay significantly longer than other residents. So there's even fewer of them available because once people get in there, they stay longer. And so there's a real shortage that we see and that the people on staff manage every day. As Chuck mentioned, and I'll just say it briefly, for the reasons he said, I do honestly believe that that is a unique residential community. That yes, there's a lot of more homes, multifamily homes that'll be coming to the market, but they're not 243 Steele Road. The people that are on our waiting lists are not on other waiting lists. Next slide, please. And as Chuck said, they're different than the walkable town center residential communities, both approved and proposed. I would say they favor a little bit more urban, where, as Chuck said, we're more suburban. We're more horizontal, less vertical, fewer units in each of the buildings. Steele Road is a quiet road. Our site is a large site, 15.5 acres. So I would welcome the opportunity to reinvest in that community and reinvest in West Hartford. That really concludes my remarks. The letter of support from University of St. Joseph, Chuck touched on as he did for Trinity Health, which of course operates the Macaulay. So thank you very much. That concludes my remarks, and I'm happy, as are the rest of the team, to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Sager. Mr. Dodge.
Madam Mayor, if I could just inquire of the applicant, you had made mention of an affidavit, if you want to describe what that is and also hand it into the council clerk for the record.
Sure. This is the sign affidavit for 243 Steele Road, STD number 139.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Sager. Thank you, Mr. Dodge. And we are going to begin with public comment. Have you, Mr. Clerk, received any written comments on this public hearing?
Madam Mayor, we've received correspondence from Alan Freshler of 275 Steele Road. We've received correspondence from Eric Dana on behalf of Trinity Health Senior Communities. And we've received correspondence from Rona Free on behalf of the University of St. Joseph. As of right now, we have not received any correspondence from Christopher Conway from the West Hartford Chamber of Commerce.
Thank you, Mr. Davidoff. We have 3 people signed up. If you haven't signed up, you can still speak. So the first person, if you could state your name and address for the record. The first person is Alan Freshler. And the mic is automatic. It is automatic mic. You speak into it, and it will work. Hopefully.
I'm not sure what I did there. Anyhow, I'm Alan Freshler, and I'm a 5-year resident of the Macaulay. The Macaulay has currently about 190 senior residents. The average age there, I would guess, is approaching 90. We have one party that is 105 years old. The property works pretty well, but we have suffered greatly because of the virus issues and some of the competition in the area. Anthology has built 2 for-rent kinds of senior living properties nearby, just over the mountain. And of course, Doncaster and Seabury had 68 additional units that came online probably about 3 years ago. We actually had a deposit at Doncaster. It was a waiting list situation. My partner is an interior designer, and he had a client at the Macaulay. So that was our first exposure to the Macaulay. We actually loved the units there. The floor plans were great. It was a well-run property from our discussions with others in the area. I would like, though, however, to focus on a few things. And before I do that, Chuck, thank you for addressing some of the issues when you came to the meeting at the Macaulay about 10 days ago, particularly the reconstruction issues. Does that run out to the stop sign? It does. Okay. All right. Thank you. That was an important concern on the part of residents. I come to you as a resident, not representing the Macaulay interest or Trinity interests. We believe that their interests are not always aligned with our interests. Trinity is really operated out of Michigan, so they are an absentee owner of our property. They do come maybe once a year and do a walkthrough and have meetings with the management, but they don't meet with us, the residents. So I have collected the interests of some of the other residents there, and I'd like to express those. There are, in the opinion of us, Trinity Health has gained from this. They have now their entrance that somehow when this property was divided, it didn't belong to us. We did not know that when we signed up to go to Trinity. And in the big picture, it probably does not matter. But they probably also received a payment. But this is an area that I'm unfamiliar with. But I do know that the Hartford Courant is talking about property on Trout Brook and where the Children's Museum was that sold for substantial amounts of money, record prices. So there was probably some money there. None of that money flowed to us. Metro Realty has tax benefits, flexible rental pricing, and more land for development when this property was agreed to, this land switch. The town of West Hartford, you folks, have an enormous financial interest in this. You have a long tax revenue tail coming from this property. Not only the actual real estate, but the automobiles, these 30 automobiles that will be located there. It's pretty substantial, yes.
Thank you, Mr. Freshler. We try to keep comments to a few minutes, so we still have a full meeting ahead.
Okay.
So if you
All
could
right.
just,
Okay.
yeah, thank
Can
you.
I have 5 minutes here?
A few more minutes, okay? Thank you.
Okay. The residents of the Macaulay received nothing from any of this. In fact, our driveway may or may not be impaired for a while, our major driveway. I do like, as I said earlier, some of the things that Chuck has agreed to based on our meeting. We as senior residents do not have freedom of movement. We pay a buy-in to belong to or reside at the property. And that buy-in can be as high as $250,000, a substantial investment for seniors. There's a 4-year vesting period of that. This is an important consideration. We feel that that is being impaired because the construction period here of approximately 14 months, at least the front end when the heavy construction vehicles will be in the area, will impair our marketing efforts. I'm not a direct part of that. As I said, I'm a resident, but I can see that that's a possibility. We've been running around 80% occupancy. It's gone up a little bit higher since the virus scares have ended. So we're in a little better shape, but that's a factor here. Most of us live on fixed income. And by the way, I would like to have this paper written into whatever.
Yes, you can submit that for the record and follow up. Yes.
Okay, thank you. Remedies. You talk about rebuilding. Thanks, Chuck. I'd like 10 to 12 inches of topsoil. I'm sorry, maybe I did not hear you.
No, you did not. Okay, but if you could just finish in the next minute or so, that would be very helpful. 'Cause
Okay, I
we
have
do
a cochlear implant, so I'm hearing impaired.
yes.
Okay. So we'd like 10 to 12 inches of topsoil there, Chuck. I disagree with you regarding the comments by your nursery people that it faces north. We have a wonderful sun there. We live there 24 hours a day. We have a wonderful morning sun in the summer and overhead. So we think the wildflowers may in fact work on parts of that disturbed surfaces. This proposal is for you here, and it's regarding a possible tax abatement that for perhaps a 5-year period, you might consider a property like the Macaulay, who has been a major taxpayer for the town of West Hartford. We are a not-for-profit, property. So it's like whatever taxes you people approve are passed through to us in our monthly maintenance fees. So I'm looking for some consideration here. It's a little different kind of looking at that from a senior standpoint. We're on fixed income, so whatever you guys approve gets passed through to us. Maybe during this 5-year period, there could be a moratorium on increases for a not-for-profit property. Please consider that. I would like the developer to promote at least one meet and greet. On his schematic here, he showed one period in which you were going to have an open house for Macaulay residents. I applaud you for that. I think that's wonderful. But I'd like to flip that and also maybe have you offer a meet and greet where our marketing people could come. I love the idea that 36% of your people or so are seniors. Maybe there'll be potential residents of the Macaulay down the road.
Thank you, Mr. Fresher. Okay, so if you could wind it up, we need to have our next speaker.
All right,
Thank
very
you.
good. So that's the essence. Thank you very much
Thank
for
you
your
so
time.
much. Thank you. Okay, next person that signed up is Michael Bohm.
Madam Mayor, council members, my name is Michael Bowen. I live at 243 Steele Road. I've lived there for 6.5 years. I moved in fact, when I looked at my unit, I wore a hard hat to go look at it. So, and at that time, I was about to retire. I 30 years as an engineer, lived in various cities around the U.S. I'm from New England, but we decided we wanted to make West Hartford our home. And after 30 plus years of owning a home, my wife and I, looking at the prospect of moving back into an apartment, our first apartment was in Groton, Connecticut, when I worked at Millstone, when that was Unit 3 was under construction. But the prospect of moving back into an apartment was, it was hard to get our heads around that after having a house in various places. But when we got here, and we looked around, there was nothing like this, 243. I could see it. Having spent my career as an engineer, almost all of it in construction, despite the nature of the site at the time, I could see what this was going to become. And in fact, it did become that. So my wife and I represent a piece of that 36%. We're empty nesters, been here for 6.5 years. And we'll, that long list of people, they're not going to get our 2-bedroom unless maybe I'll move to the Macaulay when the time comes. But anyway, I said to Jeff when I got here, I said, hey, I have friends that have come and stayed with us and they've applied and they're on the list, and he said, would you stand up and say that? And so that's what I'm here to say. So we'll leave it at that.
Thank you very much, Mr. Bohm. Okay, and the next person that signed up is Erica Churko-Soykin. Thank you. Awesome.
I I'm Erica Churgo Soycon. I'm a resident.
You just have to speak into the
Sorry.
mic so we can get it on the record. Thank you so
Sure,
much.
great. And this is my daughter Kathleen Soycon.
Hi, Kathleen.
This is like a Paw Patrol episode. I'm on borrowed time. We live at 243 Steele Road. We are in Building 7. So on the map, our Building 7 kind of is where the Macaulay property and St. Joseph's in that corner intersection. So I have 3 concerns. One of them primarily is a health concern that is unique to Building 7, Building 5, Building 4, and Building 8 will be in the stream. And this came up in 2020, in the summer of 2020, when we had a storm and we lost power for 1 week. And what happened is the backup diesel generator that is on the Macaulay property does not have a stack to go up higher. There's different elevations on the property. So what happened is we woke up, we didn't have air conditioning, so we left our windows open, and my daughter was 9 months old at the time. And our bedroom filled with carbon monoxide from the exhaust from it. So when they run that test, monthly or quarterly, if we have our windows open to reduce our carbon footprint, that carbon monoxide goes into our apartment, and it's toxic. So we were without power for 1 week, and an infant doesn't have the ability to regulate their body temperature like we do. So when we expect building baby number 2, God forbid we lose power, we're going to run into that problem. And I feel like that was an environmental health concern that was overlooked because it's invisible. So it's a major concern. It was overlooked by a lot of people. And if you walk outside and they run that, it's like 10 tractor trailers, the exhaust coming at you at once. So I hope that while there's an opportunity to review the changes on the property, that they could either, raise the exhaust system so that it's not going into our apartments. 2, I think that while we have wonderful residents that live at the property that help contribute to the West Hartford community, it's a wonderful town to live in. My husband and I are both out of state. This apartment complex, they have very nice staff that work there, and we really do feel like they help to enhance the community. They're very slow with public safety concerns. So in the summer of August of 2021, September 2021, Building 7 had a break-in, my building. My husband and I own an investment property, vacation investment property in South Carolina. So we were visiting our other home, and we did not receive notice that our building was broken into. They're very quick to send us an email of when the coffee machine is broken, but when it comes to public safety, I've had people walk into my apartment that don't live in the building or don't work for the apartment complex. They only now installed cameras on the backside of Building 7 this week. So when it comes to concerns of safety, major safety concerns for me and my family, I found that the notice period, that's something as an attorney myself, licensed in Massachusetts, not in Connecticut, you were given notice upon the break-in. You would think right then and there an owner would react, right? Because here's a safety concern. And it didn't happen until last week. And I know there was a petition that went around for our building, and it wasn't, after the break-in went around, after the break-in in 2021, they still didn't react. So that's a concern for me as a resident there, And then lastly, the parking issue. I didn't make it to the meeting that they had for the residents because I was in surgery. I had surgery that day. But I was told that the parking situation was going to go down to 1.3 parking spots per resident. My husband and I, we occupy one of those 2-bedroom apartments in Building 7. So we pay extra for a garage. Garages are not included. So in order to we've lived in Boston for many years, so we know what it's like to fight for a parking spot. So to go down to 1.3 parking spots where you're forced to buy a garage so you have a guaranteed parking spot, I think is a little unreasonable for the suburban lifestyle that they're proposing right now. When you look at the average income in order to use one of those units, most of them are occupied by 2 individuals, right? Whatever their family composition is that they make up of that one unit. And it's, while West Hartford is located next to Hartford, every unit has 2 cars. So in the end, they said, even though they're rearranging the parking, I was told that we would be down 10 spots. So, you have a little bit of neighbors rubbing like this that are, especially since a lot of the people that live on the property are resident doctors or emergency room doctors, and they come home from their shifts at 10 o'clock and they don't have parking. They have to park really far away. And we don't have assigned parking, which is kind of nice. Because, from us, we don't care when we're out of state. We spend about 4 months out of year out of state. But still, it's unreasonable to think that the parking situation for what they have proposed will be adequate for the complex. So those are my 3 concerns. And I hope that, something can be done without retaliation against us as a renter.
Thank you, Ms. Chirkosoikin. I appreciate it. Okay. Is there anybody else in the audience that has not spoken to this public hearing that would like to speak? I don't see anybody. Okay. All right. Why don't we bring the applicant back up and they can respond to the comments that they received, the public comment, and then we'll open up the council.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I believe, as it relates to Mr. Freshler's comments, that in my initial presentation, I spoke to most of them. We are unable to move the building, which was one of the suggestions in the letter. The meet and greet, we embrace that idea. The whole notion of senior living, we are very involved in the senior living community. We understand the continuum of care. We understand that as residents age in place in our buildings, in elevator buildings, they could be candidates for the Macaulay. We understand why they would want to stay in the neighborhood. I think it's a great idea that Mr. Freshler came up with, and we will undertake to have such a meeting. As it relates to the woman who just spoke, I was not aware of that concern about the Macaulay exhaust, but I will look into it right away. I don't have much more to say on it because I just don't know anything about it. Sounds like a possible remedy is to extend the stack, but I'm really completely outside my lane, so I don't want, and of course that's a very serious concern. I get that. We will get to the bottom of that starting tomorrow morning. So as it relates to the intrusion event, we checked with the West Hartford Police because I hadn't heard about that, but we did know as a company. I didn't know personally. But I said, please check, have there been any other intrusions? There had been no other intrusion events on our site, since 2017. So that was an isolated event. As it relates to the cameras, there are no cameras in the back of that building covering the sliding glass doors because we cover the pedestrian entrances. So a sliding glass door is accessed from somebody's unit to the outside. It still has a fence up there, but it's not how you would get into the home. You get into the home through a common corridor. There's 2 for each building. That particular building has no entrance on the back of it. So that's why there's no cameras there, because the cameras cover the pedestrian entrances. Since then, we have installed a camera, but there was no camera at the time. So parking, I can give you a very detailed and depicted 6 or 7 minute answer, or I can also just tell you that on a net basis, we will be losing 2 parking spaces. So how do I get to that number? Because there are 18 units in the new building. You need 1.5 parking spaces per unit. That's 27. We have 15 parking spaces in the parking lot to the west. We have 14 spaces to the parking lot to the east. That's 29. We have 10 garages. That's 39. We need 27. That was the 18 times 1.5. So we're 12 to the good. But where the building is, we're eliminating 22 spaces. So now we're 10 to the bad. But we have parking, we have units that we have spaces that we can put in the parking lot that is on the south side of Building 7. And we have other spaces where we can pick up 8 of those. So for a net, it would be 10. Now, I also want to make the point that in our count of parking spaces, we do not include the apron in front of the garage. So anybody that has a garage has an apron in front of the garage, and there's 100 garages on premises. So that's not even in our count. So in addition to all the surface parking and the statistics we showed you, there's another 100 spaces on those aprons that aren't available to the public at large or to other residents at large. But of course, if a resident has 2 cars, one could park inside, one could park on the apron. I believe that was it, Madam Mayor, if there was anything else.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Sager. Why don't you stay up, because
will.
there may be questions from the council. I'll just start with one quick question. The air conditioning units on that 8th building, where will they be?
In the unit itself. You saw them on the elevation. They're not on the ground.
Okay. All right. Okay. Mr. Sweeney.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And thank you for the presentation and for the work that you guys are doing in town. One of the things that I noticed about the presentation is you had some really great statistics about who lives there, the makeup, but you added in this 5% affordable piece. Can you tell us about how you got to that number and like the discussion of adding on new units and how you guys were going to factor in affordable units into your expansion?
Sure. That is guidance that we received from other people within the community, that we don't have affordable units in the rest of the development. What I am is an affordable housing developer. So if you go back and look at my history, we own and operate, we built from the ground up, and we continue to own 22 affordable housing communities, all in the high opportunity suburban towns in Connecticut. So we have an entire compliance department. I'm building 88 affordable homes in Berlin. I just submitted to CHFA an application for 65 homes in Farmington. We know affordable housing very well. Notwithstanding, this is a market rate development. Everything has been predicated upon market rate standards. And we received guidance that, look, you need to include some affordable housing, which is what we did. I mean, it's one unit, but it's also a small building. So it's 5%, it's one home.
Okay. I just, of 190 units that you have now, and then you're going to add one in, I mean, why bother with one?
It's meaningful. For that one person, it's meaningful. I mean, I could walk you through the story. So if somebody gets that home, they'll think they hit the lottery, so to speak. I mean, I hear that all the time from our affordable housing residents. You know, given the costs of building in today's environment, given the cost of interest rates, given the cost of various off-site improvements we've been discussing, it's hard to make everything work. So, you know, that is why we're proposing what we did.
And is that one unit a single? Or?
It is. It's a one-bedroom home, yes.
Okay. Okay. I have no other questions.
Thank you, Mr. Sweeney. Mr. Cortez?
So I just want to get through you, Madam Mayor, just the math. So it's 18 units. How many are 2 bedrooms?
8.
8 2 bedrooms. Because it's very funny. I called today, and the staff are extremely friendly, and there is no wait for a 1 bedroom, but there is definitely. I have plenty of clients who are looking for 2 bedrooms. So why not why not more 2 bedrooms than the 1 bedroom?
The configuration and the lot constraints. It's a box and you fit widgets in a box, and I can call that up on the screen and show you, but it doesn't work.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cortez.
Thank you.
Ms. Fay? Sure.
Thank you very much. We didn't go through, well, we all did on our own, but we didn't go through the parking or traffic study. What was the end result in net gain or because of this new 18-unit building?
Of parking spaces?
No, I'm sorry. Of car traffic.
Yes. Could I defer to Mark Vertucci, our traffic engineer, who's here with me this evening?
Sure.
Please.
Good evening. I'm Mark Vertucci, Senior Transportation Engineer at Fuss & O'Neill in Manchester. We did prepare a brief traffic statement for the 18 additional units, and to determine how much additional traffic this would generate, we actually went out and counted the existing development driveway for how much the existing 190 units are generating. And then we applied a rate to what the additional 18 would generate. And what we came up with is 7 additional vehicle trips in the morning peak hour of traffic and 8 additional vehicle trips in the afternoon peak hour of traffic. We did compare that with industry standard ITE rates, and they were pretty much dead on with what we counted. So this development is generating what we would expect it to based on other rates at similar developments around the country. Yeah.
Thank you, Ms. Fay. Ms. Blanks.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you for the presentation. As always, I always enjoy these presentations. So I have a couple of questions for you, and perhaps it's in the packet, and I didn't get to it all. So what's the square footage of the 2-bedroom and the 1-bedroom?
So I can call it up exactly. We can go through it with precision, but I can tell you generally the 2 bedrooms are 1,225 square feet. The 1-bedrooms vary. They'll go anywhere from the low to mid 900s to 806, I believe.
Okay. And the parking, I think I can identify with the young lady because I have a daughter and she's always complaining about when she comes home at the end of the night and can never find a place to park. So do you or are you planning to have some type of overflow parking in a situation like that where folks come home and they can't find a place to park or close to their unit?
Yeah, so just to be clear on what we heard, so it's not a shortage of spaces, it's convenience. So as a general proposition, as you get deeper into the site, it's a little tighter. So that means you'd have to park you'd have to park further away, but more toward the front of the site. The front of the site has loads of parking. And, the distance that you'd be talking about, and look, on any given day, any series of events might find people parking in one place or some. You may have to walk a little bit further. That's true.
Just use the mic so they make sure that we.
Yeah. So just to point out, we don't do reserved spaces with the exception of the garages because you want the benefit of what we call the float. So in other words, if I had a reserved surface space and I was away, nobody could use it. So we don't do that. We don't reserve any spaces or handicap ourselves in any way. So we have plenty of parking on the site. What do I think the true parking utilization is on the site overall? It's the 1.3 number that you heard, and we count cars all the time. That is what's really utilized. But what you're hearing is that there might be it may not be convenient, which I understand and appreciate, and we want to mitigate and adopt the measures that we mentioned earlier and get it down to a net loss of maybe 1 or 2 spaces, or even to 0. We'll work with staff on that.
And one more question through you, Madam Mayor. What was my question? I just forgot it. Okay, I just forgot it, so I'll come back.
Okay, no problem.
Thank you.
Mr. Winograd?
Just very briefly, the PowerPoint presentation, can we get that submitted to the clerk and added to the record?
Of course.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That's it? Okay, thank you. Nothing? Okay. All right. So, where are we? On the public, okay, here we go. Mr. Cortez has another question.
Through you, Madam Mayor, I don't know who I asked this question to. With regards to the stack for the generator to Macaulay, I know that you were going to follow up and look into it. Is there any way that someone could let us know what the outcome is to that?
Mr. Dodge, would you be able to, like, is there a condition that we can put on that? It doesn't apply to this particular application, but.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. It's difficult to see how we could draft a condition that would apply to the Macaulay since they're not the applicant, and I'm not sure what mitigation measures could be taken by the applicant, so I would be hesitant to put anything in the conditions of approval. That being said, and I would leave it to the town manager, that our town staff, I'm sure, will work with the applicant to make sure that whatever safety issues are there are addressed, and they could certainly report back to the council at a future date on compliance with various building codes and that sort of thing.
Okay, I mean, this could be something that the fire department looks at and.
Yep, absolutely. We work with Mr. Sagers and with Macaulay's to ensure that something is changed there with the stacks. So, and we can report back to a certain committee. I'd have to think about which one, but we will work with Mr. Sagers and Macaulay's and get back to the council.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Ledwith. Thank you, Mr. Cortez. Was one of my questions. Anything? Okay, Ms. Blanks remembered her question.
Thank you. Sorry. Senior moment. The construction. Once construction begins, how will that impact the parking for the current residents and even the traffic flow?
Yes, thank you. So what we showed you for a construction strategy is the shortest distance to access the building from Steele Road, and it has the fewest possible encounters with pedestrians. But there will be no construction parking on the 243 Steele Road site. So, we will come up with a parking plan that we will work with the planning department or with the town engineer, but we are very mindful of the two communities. The outreach was loud and clear. It's going to be akin to building like a museum or something in an inner city area where you just have to be on your game all the time. If I need to hire people to direct the traffic, as we did when we were initially constructing in 2016 for the benefit of the School for Young Children, we will do so.
Thank you, Ms. Blanks. Mr. Sweeney?
And I just have one follow-up question to the affordability thing. So is there how long are you securing this for an affordable?
20 years.
Okay. And then the other aspect is, would you be open to making it one of the 2 families or the 2 bedrooms?
Sure.
Because I think, to your point, this is an amazing property, and to really be inviting and inclusive as you guys are talking about, I think having a family live there as opposed to a single person. I think one of the things that we've been trying to do here on affordable is allow for families to move into town and benefit from the ability to go to school here, and I think that's one of the things that we've tried to work on. And I think with a single family, that would preclude this to people that don't have kids, obviously. But I think that if you did that, I think that would be a really nice gesture to really be inviting to families to come in.
I'm agreeable to that, yes.
Okay. Thank you. Appreciate that.
Thank you, Mr.
For
Sweeney.
the question.
Okay. All right. So I will read into the record, and I'll go back around with questions one more time. But letter dated March 24th, 2023, from Town Planning and Zoning Commission recommending approval. Letter dated March 13th, 2023, from Design Review Advisory Committee recommending approval. And we did receive the letter from Mr. Conway, Chair of the Chamber. Okay. And with that, if there are any more, well, Ms. Fay.
Yes, thank you. So this seems to be a hot topic right now, both the traffic and the parking situation. How do you provide for visitors? I'm sure a lot of people, like the woman in the back, Murata State, have visitors coming, in-laws, what have you. How do you accommodate that? And with a net gain, or loss, excuse me, is it worthy at this point to consider designated visitor parking? I don't know what the visitor to resident ratio is, but, you know, maybe we could do something with that to help alleviate some of the owner concerns or home occupied concerns.
Thank you for that question. So we don't have a specific visitor policy. So visitors would park in surface parking along with everybody else. If we were to designate any areas as visitor parking, and we often see that when we go to the doctor or whatever it may be, it's not a good idea because you're taking the spaces offline. It's actually exacerbating the problem because those spaces are coming out of the mix for residents, let's say, to park in. So we don't have a formal strategy for residents. You know, if you had a dozen homes or 20 homes, you can have a set of circumstances that's particular to those people that are living there. But when you have 200 homes in a community, the law of averages is very compelling. And as I said, we count cars all the time because we're very mindful of it. Our true utilization is about 1.3. We're providing 1.54, so that's a lot of extra spaces. I'll grant you that most of them, as I mentioned, are on the east side of the building. I shouldn't say most of them. I should say often, if there is a tight situation, people would walk to the east. But it also doesn't consider, as I also mentioned, that there's another 100 spaces on the aprons in front of the garages. So I don't think there's a parking problem there. Net on the site, what we're going to lose, we're proposing is 2. If we need to find the 2, we'll find the 2. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Fay. All right. With that, thank you very much, Mr. Seger.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Wonderful presentation. Actually, I just wanted to follow up on the safety protocol. Do you have a different kind of method of communication with the owner if there were to be a break-in? How would you follow up with
You
that?
know
Not that it's-
something, I'm afraid I don't have a good answer for that. I think that's a legal question too. I've got to defer to that. Okay. I just don't have a good answer. I'm sorry.
It doesn't really apply to this particular application,
Yep.
but,
You have
just
my
a-
commitment to look into it.
Thank you. All right, with that, we will close this public hearing, and we will start the town council meeting. Do people need a 5-minute break? Yeah. Okay, 5-minute break, and we will be back to start the council meeting. Thank you. Do you have a problem with this? Okay, we are calling the 7:30 April 11th Town Council meeting to order, and we will begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Roll call, Mr. Davidoff?
Yes, Madam Mayor.
It's hard.
Councilor Blanks.
Present.
Mayor Cantor.
Here.
Councilor Cortez.
Here.
Councilor Fay.
Present.
Councilor McGinnis.
President.
Councilor Poland.
Here.
Deputy Mayor Sweeney. Councilor Winograd. Councilor Zdanowicz.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Davidoff. Before we get into the business of tonight's meeting, I actually had prepared a little longer comments, but I will be brief, seeing that I can't let it pass. It took just 1 minute for a gunman to complete his deadly rampage at a Louisville bank before he stopped yesterday and waited for police to arrive and then shooting 2 police officers. There are 5 dead, 8 injured, 2 police officers and 7 civilians. 3 patients have been released, 3 are in critical condition, including a police officer. We've had 146 mass shootings in 100 days in 2023. The number of U.S. kids dying by gunfire keeps rising. Stunning stat, gun deaths among America's kids rose by 50% in the last 2 years, according to a new Pew Research Center report last week. More children and teens were killed by guns in 2021 than in any year since the first data for this was recorded. And the majority of adult deaths are suicide. Children and teens' deaths are more likely to die by homicide. 2022 marked the most violent year in schools with 46 shootings since the 1999, keeping track of these. There were 48,830 gun deaths of Americans in 2021. That was up 23% from 2019, the highest total on record. And so far this year is ahead of that record. So compare that, there was another statistic. The higher number of young gun deaths in the U.S. is bringing down the country's overall life expectancy. Consider this, 1 in 25 American kindergartners won't make it to their 40th birthday. So I want to rise in a moment of silence, and we have to do better. Thank you. All right. We will go to number 3, public forum. Is there anyone that has signed up to speak on something that is not the subject of a public hearing? Mr. Ledwith, could you check for me, just to see if there's anybody signed up to speak? That's okay. I know it's Mr. Curtis. I'm going to put you in the corner. Okay, is there anybody here that wants to speak to something? I don't think there is anybody here. Okay, and Mr. Sweeney, number 4.
Madam Mayor, without objections, I move that items 5A, 5B, and 5C be placed on the consent calendar.
Is there any objection? Hearing no objection, the items are placed on consent. Mr. Sweeney?
Madam Mayor, without objection, I move adoption of the consent calendar.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. 6, Mr. Sweeney.
Yes. Madam Mayor, I make a motion to approve, subject to conditions, the application on behalf of Steele Road LLC, owner of 243 Steele Road.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Mr. Dodge, please explain conditions.
Madam Mayor, I was going to ask if we could please just table this item temporarily as we draft the conditions of approval, and maybe
Okay.
we could move on to other agenda items.
Okay.
Should I withdraw it?
You can withdraw the motion. We can just pass it temporarily.
Okay, we will be back shortly. Let me know. All right, B, Mr. Sweeney.
Yes. Sorry, Madam Mayor. Madam Mayor, I make a motion to adopt ordinance amending the special flood hazard areas standards.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Mr. Ledwith, could you just do a quick summary of
Sure,
what-
Madam Mayor. This ordinance was the subject of a public hearing earlier this evening and involved changes to our special flood hazard area standards to incorporate recent changes from the community rating system to increase minimum standards for construction in special flood hazard areas. The change has been reviewed and approved by Corporation Council, Town Plan and Zoning Commission by a 4-0 vote, as well as the Capital Region Council of Governments.
Thank you,
Through
Mr.
Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Ledwith. Any discussion? Ms. Fay?
Yeah, just following up on my earlier question, Mr. Ledwith, should we be shooting to get to a higher percentage, and how would we go about that to give some relief to property owners?
Through you, Madam Mayor. So we were, as I stated earlier, we've been a Class 8 for a number of years. I want to say 10, 11, 12 years. We've been a CRS-rated community. We're one of 18 in the state who voluntarily moved through the CRS rating system. We're one of 4 now in the state of Connecticut who are at Class 7. So we did move from 8 to 7. We certainly will work. I mean, the adoption of this ordinance gave us an additional, I want to say, 38 points, which moved us up the rating scale to 7. It becomes a little bit tougher to move up to Class 6, but we will work with our zoning department to do what we need to continue to move up that ladder.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Ms. Fay. Thank you, Mr. Ledwith. All right, any other? Okay, all right, Ms. Pullen.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. Just an opportunity to talk about something I learned recently and wanted to share with any members of the public who might be paying attention to this item is over the last couple of years, there have been new flood insurance options available to people. So you no longer need to purchase through FEMA. There is private flood insurance, and I encourage folks who are purchasing flood insurance to learn about their options because you can save a lot of money that way. Potentially.
Thank you, Ms. Pullen. All right. Okay. Seeing no other comments, we will do a roll call vote, Mr. Davidoff.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Councilor Blanks.
Yes.
Mayor Cantor.
Yes.
Councilor Cortez.
Yes.
Councilor Fay.
Yes.
Councilor McGinnis.
Yes.
Councilor Poland.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Sweeney.
Yes.
Councilor Winograd.
Yes.
And Councilor Zdanowitz is absent. It passes 8-0.
Thank you, Mr. Davidoff. Mr. Dodge, you ready for us now? Yes?
Yes.
Okay, so we'll make the motion. Number 6, Mr. Sweeney.
Madam Mayor, I make a motion to approve, subject to conditions, an application filed on behalf of Steele Road LLC, owner of 243 Steele Road.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Mr. Dodge, will you explain the conditions?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. As the council is aware, this is an existing SDD, and so these conditions will simply amend the existing conditions of approval that the town council had previously put in place. By and large, Madam Mayor, the changes that we've suggested here, just by way of reference, there's no red line with these conditions of approval because they will simply replace the previous conditions of approval. Most of the changes simply update the conditions with what is our current practice. We put in place a new requirement for materials maintenance on the site, also restrictions on construction activity in terms of the hours of operation, requirements for pest control and pest assessment, and also finally, Madam Mayor, because I know it was a subject of discussion during the public hearing, there is a requirement for an affordability plan in the conditions of approval. Pursuant to the suggestion of Councilor Sweeney, the conditions of approval will require the applicant to provide one residential unit that is a 2-bedroom residential unit for affordable housing that will be required to be affordable at 80% of the median income as set forth in 830G. I know the applicant had said initially that it was going to be a 20-year requirement. That will actually be a 40-year requirement, so that counts for our 830G 10% requirement. And Madam Mayor, that will also be required to be deed restricted in a form that is approved by my office. Madam Mayor, I'm happy to answer any other questions that anybody may have on the conditions of approval.
Thank you, Mr. Dodge. Are there questions on these conditions? Okay. The only one I had was the 40 years. I saw that right away. I was like, oh, okay. All right, is that it? Okay, then we can go to discussion of adoption with, subject to conditions. Is there anyone would like to, Mr. Sweeney?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I would like to first thank the applicant for continued investment in West Hartford, and most importantly, I think the flexibility demonstrated today. This is a fantastic thing. As the applicant said, I think these affordable units in particular developments like this do change lives, and and particularly making the investment in a family unit can really actually change the life of multiple people. And so appreciate the flexibility on this, and appreciate the Corp Council's quick work. Gina, you're amazing, and Mr. Dodge, you're not far behind. But I just wanted to state my appreciation. I know that these conversations can sometimes be a little awkward because you guys have done all this work, and then we get to ask you questions on all this right at the table. But I appreciate that, and look forward to seeing this happen. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sweeney. Anybody else? Mr. Cortez.
Again, I would like to thank the applicant for the presentation. It's like a lottery ticket, these units, whether it's the affordable housing, which, I am pleased that got changed to 2-bedroom, or a 1-bedroom unit in there. There is a demand for it, and that's all it is, a lottery ticket. It doesn't solve issues in town, but it's great. My concern is just the tightness in there. It is kind of tight, when you put that building in there, and on paper, it looks great, but as you're driving around and people start using the space in front of the garages, I've been to similar complex like that, and it becomes a little bit tight, but it's just a little uncomfort. Again, I appreciate you guys addressing the concerns. Things could always be better, but I will be supporting this.
Thank you, Mr. Cortez. Any other comments? Ms. Pullen?
Yes, thank you. I want to add my support for this application, and thank you to the applicant and your team for the very robust work that was done in pulling this application together. I also want to thank our town staff for working with the applicant, and this is an iterative process, of course, where the first design comes forward, concerns are raised, whether by the planner or the health district, et cetera. These are all answered. And I'm satisfied that all of the concerns that were raised by our expert town staff have been addressed by the applicant. I'm pleased to see the positive referral from DRAC and a unanimous support from the Town Plan and Zoning Commission as being consistent with our plan of conservation and development. Regarding the zoning, it appears that you're meeting all the requirements, exceeding the requirements for the RM-MS zone. And the new building will be substantially similar to the existing buildings in the space. It's going to blend in harmoniously to that particular to 243 Steele Road, but also to the neighborhood as well. Happy with the outreach that was done, and I like to see the partnership between 243 Steele Road residents and the residents of the Macaulay. So I hear the Macaulay actually has really nice happy hours. Maybe the residents at 243 Steele Road will get invited over for one of those. And so I just wanted to extend my thank you to all of those who were involved, both from the applicant side and from the town side, in pulling this application together. As was mentioned, we do have a housing crunch here in West Hartford and across the state. This isn't going to solve the problem, but it is a piece of the puzzle to getting us there. And I am appreciative of the work and will be supporting this application.
Thank you, Ms. Pullen. I appreciate it. Ms. Blanks.
Thank you, Mayor. I too want to thank the applicant for coming forward with this application and identifying that piece of property and being able to develop it and expand. especially for affordable housing. But I'm particularly thankful to you for responding to the residents that came forward today, especially the young lady with the baby, and responding to her safety issue and being able to let her know that you're going to do something about it immediately. That's going to go a long way, not only for her, but for the number of other residents that are there too, and overall the public safety of the town. So thank you for that, and I too will be supporting the application.
Thank you, Ms. Blanks. Ms. Fay?
Thank you very much. Excuse me. My opening statements, if I may have a little bit of liberty here, are just regarding the overall development in our town, the speed of it, the velocity, the number of units coming online, the additional traffic, and the other concerns. And we've got a lot coming together at the same time. A lot of these things are going to start popping up, and we really don't know what they're going to deliver in terms of additional strain on our resources, and things on fire and police and public safety. Now, having said that, I do have concerns about the overall trajectory that we're on right now. It wouldn't be fair of me to penalize this development. I think you've addressed this. It's a very clean application. It's not a zoning change. It's additive to the community you've already started. So I will be supporting this as well. I do have concerns about development overall, but again, I'm not going to penalize this project because of that.
Thank you, Ms. Fay. Ms. McGinnis, you have a...
I just want to say thank you for your presentation and especially for agreeing to make the affordable unit a 2-bedroom. That will be a very big deal for a family. So thank you.
Thank you, Ms. McGinnis. Anybody else? Okay. So I want to thank Mr. Sager and very, very much for your continued investment and the high quality, the partnership you've had with the town, the improvements that were made at your expense have proven to really benefit the community and that neighborhood. I hear it all the time. I actually went to a basketball game with a neighbor who adamantly came to testify at 2 a.m, very much against the project. I don't know if she would testify to 2, but it was quite late, very much against the project, and was so grateful that we didn't. That the project was approved and these apartments were built, because she adores having you as a neighbor. She said, "I can't imagine a better neighbor," and so that really rang true for me. I was really grateful to hear that. But this is a unique development. It is something that is not repeated throughout our community, and it is obviously highly desirable. And you are seizing on that, and I'm grateful for that, because not only are you accommodating an affordable unit for a family working, a workforce housing unit, but there's 17 other potential families, homes that you're building that will be taken off that wait list. So I am grateful for that. I also want to thank your quick response to the stack. That particular safety issue, I think, is really important for us to look at. I'm very thankful that Erica Chirko-Soykin came with her daughter and sat here throughout and waited to make those comments, because otherwise we might not have known. So that's really important. And I just will say that this is a quality project, and when you present it, you think about the problems and you invest in fixing those problems. And I have no doubt that this will be a tremendous success. So with that, we will go to roll call vote. Mr. Davidoff.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Councilor Blanks.
Yes.
Mayor Cantor.
Yes.
Councilor Cortez.
Yes.
Councilor Fay.
Yes.
Councilor McGinnis.
Yes.
Councilor Poland.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Sweeney.
Yes.
Councilor Winograd.
Yes.
Councilor Zdanowitz is absent. Passes 8-0.
Thank you, Mr. Davidoff. I just want to make an extra thank you to Mr. Sweeney for making the suggestion for the 1 to 2 bedroom, and I also want to thank our town staff. I did not do that. There's a tremendous amount of work that goes into these applications that often seem seamless when they get to us. So thank you very much. Okay. Letter, thank you, good night. Letter C, Mr. Sweeney.
Madam Mayor, I make a motion to adopt the ordinance concerning outdoor dining.
Motion's been made and seconded. Mr. Ledwith, would you do a quick review?
Sure, thank you, Mayor. The ordinance was the subject of a public hearing earlier this evening and modifies our outdoor dining ordinance to accommodate Public Act 22-1, which takes effect May 1st, 2023, and requires municipalities to allow outdoor dining as of right to permit the expansion of outdoor dining to public streets and sidewalks in any lots associated with the restaurant. The ordinance was reviewed and approved by Corporation Council, Town Plan and Zoning Commission by a 4-1 vote, and Capital Region Council of Government. Prior to voting, Madam Mayor, I just wanted to point out that the original ordinance that was online had 2 minor Scribner errors. Those have since been amended, and the correct ordinance is up online in the one that you'll be voting on this evening. So,
Thank you very much, and I want to thank Councilwoman Pullen for pointing those out. Okay, and this did go to committee, and Mr. Winograd, this was your committee, so I'd like you to start.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And again, we've all been talking about this, as you noted, for quite a while, and really, we've all gotten to enjoy it through COVID. It was a lot of bad things over those 3 years, but one of the great ones is really discovering how great outdoor dining can be and how well the restaurants have adapted to it. And I think that nobody wants to go back. And as we develop the center and have the center plan, I think this is an appropriate ordinance to pass now. We'll learn more as we get the fuller plans and as we build out the sidewalks and everything else. This will be very helpful to have in place. And again, for administrative support, having these things go through town planner rather than coming to us, I think is much more appropriate. We often get kind of bogged down into the minutia, and frankly, that's better served by staff. And I'm sure the restaurants will prefer being able to go through them and for just a speedier process. A lot less bureaucracy. I think that's appropriate because we all want to get out there. We all want to eat. I'd enjoy the weather as we have it. One thing I will add, I note the concern raised by TPZ regarding advertising on umbrellas. That seems to be the one topic. It did come up, I think, at the beginning of COVID. We had a discussion about that, and we'd heard back at the time various pleas from restaurateurs about the inability to find umbrellas at that time. I think that some of those concerns are probably gone, but I do think the aesthetics of it, even within this ordinance, there is authority by the town staff to look at that aesthetics. I don't think this is going to be anything outrageous. We can revisit if it is, but I do think that's I understand their concern. I appreciate their work and trying to make sure we're as desirable a community as possible. But I don't think a small sign on an umbrella is really going to ruin that. And in fact, I think it might even enhance the street scene we're all looking forward to enjoying. So I do urge everyone to support this ordinance and to see you all outside at our restaurants.
Thank you, Mr. Winograd. Any other comments? Ms. Planks?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I agree with Councilor Winograd. I think this ordinance is an appropriate and a great collaboration between our businesses and our town staff as we move forward to the new normal that we've all become accustomed to. I know the number of times that I'm going through the center and through Blueback, I see more and more people, even in our colder months with some of the restaurants, still dining out. So I think this is just our new normal and our new way of learning to adapt on how to reside, how to dine outside and enjoy the number of our restaurants in town and enjoy the delectables menu that they offer all of us. So I do think this is much better this way, as Councilor Winograd said, come bogged down, and it's easier customer service for both our business owners as well as our town staff. So I urge everyone to support this as well.
Thank you, Ms. Planks. Ms. Fay?
Thank you, Mayor Cantor. What I like about this whole expansion, we took a chance and tried something new during the pandemic. We already had outdoor dining, but not to the level that we have it now and through the expansion. And it's become a winner. And we established ourselves as the go-to place, not only for great food and great restaurants, but to have that experience of dining outdoors. We are becoming known for that. We really are. I hear that from a lot of my friends who live in other towns. And I think that's important, especially as we're facing into maybe potential headwinds with our economy, that we still have something that we can offer that's unique and that's different and lets people experience that, and really helps our restaurants and our small businesses. So obviously I'm supporting this. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Fay. Mr. Cortez.
Why not? I just want to say thank you. I benefit from this. I look, our center, since we've done the outdoor dining has been great, whether sitting at Brico's in the middle, in the evening, or having brunch at Treva on a Sunday morning outdoors. This is a great option, and I'm glad that, it's something that we're expanding upon. So thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Who had their hand up over here? Ms. Paul? No? You all done? Okay. I agree with you so much, Ms. Fay, because we have become a destination. When COVID became an issue and our restaurants were really brought to their knees, this was critical for their survival. And not only did it, and I want to thank town staff for pivoting so quick and being so creative and doing really yeoman's work for making this happen. We were the star, if not one of the stars, we were one of the stars, if not the star, of that pivot and outdoor dining in the state. And I did receive a call from Scott Dolch, who is the director of the Restaurant Association, thanking me, talking to the restaurants. He had a direct connection with all of them, many of them, I should say, and how grateful they are to be in West Hartford, and how we are really, again, an example. And he said he's going to share this ordinance with other communities. So I'm great. Wow.
At least we figured out it's not a bird.
I really, really am grateful for town staff and getting this done. And I hope to see you again, all outside eating, which will be really fun. I know. We have a little spring problem over here. I don't know if you can hear it, but to the one person, my mom may be watching. Anyway, all right. So we will now go to roll call vote. Mr. Davidoff.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Councilor Blanks.
Yes.
Mayor Cantor.
Yes.
Councilor Cortez.
Yes.
Councilor Fay.
Yes.
Councilor McGinnis.
Yes.
Councilor Poland.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Sweeney.
Yes.
Councilor Winograd.
Yes.
Councilor Zdanowitz is absent. Passes unanimously, 8-0.
Terrific. Thank you, Mr. Davidoff. Okay, we will go to Town Manager's report. Mr. Ledwith. Oh, sorry. New business. I apologize. Thank you.
One more resolution.
Yep, one more resolution. Mr. Sweeney, go ahead.
Madam Mayor, make a motion to Madam Mayor, make a motion to adopt a resolution appropriating additional grant funds awarded under the Sustainable Materials Management Grant Program.
Motion's been made and seconded. Mr. Ledwith, can you
Thanks, Madam Mayor. This resolution was previously before the council and approved on January 10th, as you may recall, to appropriate a Sustainable Materials Management Grant Program in the amount of $106,000 and $106,200, which, as you may recall, will allow us to participate in a pilot program to reduce our waste by up to 40%, increase recycling, and offer curbside collection of food waste for residents. Since receiving the grant, DEEP has increased some reporting obligations, and in addition, in working with our selected vendor, Blue Earth, we determined that we needed higher quality food scrap containers, so DEEP was kind enough to award us an additional $7,800 to meet those obligations, bringing the total award to $114,000. The pilot program will begin on or around May 1st and will run through January 31st of 2024. Through you, Madam Mayor, happy to answer any questions that the council had.
Thank you, Mr. Ledwith. And do you have the street, the offhand or no?
So I know it's the grid that runs along between Fern and Asylum, so it's Penn, it's Griswold, it's Cumberland, it's...
Troutbrook too, do you know what the...
So
end street-
Troutbrook, heading east. I don't know the furthest street east that it is going. I can find out.
Okay, just curious.
And provide that information back to the
Somebody
council.
asked
But it's
me.
about 700 households right along those streets.
Thank you. All right. Okay, any questions, discussion?
I just wanted to say I'm excited to see how this works in my household that has a ton of bio-waste of strawberry tops and apple cores for my kids, so who might throw it off. But I know that I've received a lot of input from my neighbors that I live in that area, so we got our letter on today's Tuesday. I believe we got it yesterday, notifying everyone of the start date, and we're very excited, so great. It should be great.
Terrific. I'm very excited for hear all the results. Keep throwing stuff in. Okay. No more comments? All right, then we will go to a voice vote. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Now, reports from the town manager. Mr. Lepin.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The town manager's report will be posted online. I'll begin the report with an update on some upcoming council business and meetings. We will have a finance and administration budget meeting on Monday, April 17th at 7 p.m. That'll be in person in room 217. We have a special services district budget meeting on Tuesday, April 25th at 6:30 p.m. And we have a town council meeting on Tuesday, April 25th at 7:30 p.m. here in council chambers, where the council will adopt the fiscal year 24 budget. Some quick updates on things happening around town. We all know about the LaSalle Road traffic flow going back to two-way. That'll begin on Wednesday, tomorrow. Public Works got a great head start these past few days by removing existing striping from LaSalle Road. Our pavement marking contractor will begin laying down new striping at 7 a.m. If all goes to plan, LaSalle Road will be open to two-way traffic by Wednesday afternoon. This Friday, April 14th, 2023, we will conduct the largest full-scale disaster drill in the town's history. The drill involves setting up and operating Conard High School as a reception center should an incident at the Millstone Nuclear Power Plant happen. Our role would be to receive evacuees from Montville and Waterford. Participants in the drill will scan evacuees and their vehicles for hazardous materials and then provide assistance, counseling, and placement services if needed. The practice training drill as a host community reception center is in preparation of the FEMA evaluated drill in May. Friday's drill involves about 150 staff, volunteers, and role players from 7 town departments and 8 outside agencies, including FEMA, State Department of Emergency Management and Homeland Security, American Red Cross, Connecticut Department of Mental Health and Addiction Services, and Dominion Energy. After a lengthy process, the Department of Leisure Services and Social Services is excited to announce the Westmore Park has been designated as a Level 1 Arboretum from ARBNet, the only international accreditation program to officially recognize Arboreta based on a set of professional standards. Thank you, Helen Rubino Turco. More than 60 species of trees have been identified at Westmore Park's Arboretum collection, and signage will be created to provide educational information on each tree. Special thanks to West Hartford resident Bill Gleason, who spearheaded the accreditation application with assistance from other dedicated volunteers and town staff. And finally, one last note. Today, the tail of Connie the whale was successfully removed from the Connecticut Children's Museum site and transported to the Department of Public Works, where it will be stored until a new site is approved. So everything went well today, so that was great news. Through you, Madam Mayor, happy to answer any questions that the council had.
Thank you, Mr. Letwith. I just want you to repeat Arboretum. No, I only know how to say it because my son lived near one, and I'm like, oh, that's how you say it. Okay. Any questions for Mr. Ledwith? Ms. Pullen?
Thank you. Through you, Madam Mayor. Can you just clarify the meeting on Monday? I know we had talked about the Finance Administration Committee. Your report also mentions a Human and Community Services Committee meeting that evening.
Actually, that'll be canceled.
Okay.
Yeah, so the Human and Community Services meeting is canceled, and the CPED meeting for that Wednesday is canceled.
Okay.
So,
Take those.
what we typically do during the budget season is cancel routine
Yep.
committee meetings. And we are replacing the Human and Community Services meeting with this special F&A budget meeting for Monday at 7 in
at 7.
person.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
One additional question, if that's okay, through you, Madam Mayor. Regarding the practice drill that's occurring on Friday, how have the neighbors been alerted about what's happening? I just might think if I live near Conard and I saw a whole bunch of activity going on over there during school vacation week, I would be quite concerned.
That's a good question, through you, Madam Mayor. I can look into that and get back to the council tomorrow. So there'll be about 150 cars that'll be in the parking lot, which is probably pretty standard for an average school day. School's not in session, obviously. And all of the activities will be taking place just outside the school. But I'll check with the folks who are running the event to see if there was any neighborhood outreach that was performed.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
That was a great question. Any other questions? Ms. Fay?
Thank you. Mr. Ledwith, I don't even know if you know the answer, but there's some feedback that's come out about Connie the Whale. I'm sure you've seen some of it in public commentary. Obviously, the whole thing couldn't be moved, and it's fragile, and we know all the reasons why this approach was being taken, which I think is very creative to be, I think it's a good one. But can you tell me, like, how big is, people are asking me how big is it, because we know it's not the whole whale, but is it going to be pretty sizable? Oh, cool, all right. I just want to be able to answer questions.
So it actually is, I was surprised at how, through you, Madam Mayor, how quite large the actual tail was. So I think it ended up at around 8,500 pounds, if I'm not mistaken, looking at our reporter in the audience. It took up, I have pictures myself, it took up the entire bed of an 18-wheeler truck. So it was quite large. It will be housed at the Department of Public Works until, I know we've talked in committee before about the potential of the tail moving across the street from the Children's Science Museum to some town-owned space on the Greenway. So the CSI will move through an application process. There's a wetlands application they would have to apply for, as well as a special use permit. Would have to go through the town plan and zoning process with a public hearing. But at some point, that would be the potential new home of the tail.
All set?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry about that.
All right, any other questions? I just want to add to Monday's meeting, this is, we typically do have a meeting a few days before staff needs to prepare all the documents for the resolution to adopt our budget. So there's a lot that goes into that. There's a lot of resolutions that we have, the capital budget, obviously the mill rate and all the appropriation, it's everything. So if you can all give some thought to maybe some suggestions that you have for any budget changes that will be really important to happen either on Monday or shortly after. Really, really important to do that. So thank you for that. All right. With that, Corporation Counsel, Mr. Dodge. Anything?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I have no formal report, and I'm pleased to report that we do not require an executive session this evening. However, I'm happy to answer any questions that anybody may have.
Thank you, Mr. Dodge. Any questions for Corporation Counsel? Okay, no questions. Then we go to communications or announcements. I'll be quick. This is another call for the outdoor dining barriers that will be up and The deadline proposal is for May 1st for interested artists to apply through the Art League. So they will be beautiful spaces again. Brazilian drumming in Blueback Square will take place on April 12th. This is Trinity Samba Ensemble, which is not easy to say. Please bring your own chairs. This will be a really fun event. Art Museum at University of St. Joseph's announces their outdoor sculpture project on Thursday, April 13th at 4 p.m. They will host works of art by 10 contemporary artists on campus for a long-term loan. Public is invited to visit the campus, download the new sculpture tour app, AutoCast, which is free and features audio of the sculptures discussing their work as well as links to additional information about the artists. I will say USJ has been tremendously creative. It's awesome. Short Play Festival, April 14th and 15th by West Hartford Community Theater. This is 6 new plays by Connecticut playwrights. The show runs for just those 2 nights at 8 p.m. at Elmwood Community Center. Tickets are $20. To visit West Hartford Theater for tickets. Building Connections Book Club begins April 18th. They meet on Tuesdays, 6:15 to 7:45 at the Noah Webster Library from April 18th to June 20th. And this is a book club for immigrants who want to develop their English reading and communication skills, and it is free. Register, contact Elizabeth Hanlon, and it will be online. Foundation Fund Day, April 22nd. This is a new fundraiser for the West Hartford Public School, the Foundation for West Hartford Public Schools. It will 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. This is a town-wide scavenger hunt, a silent auction, a raffle drawing, and free family-friendly educational and interactive games and activities with an Earth Day theme. You can visit WHPS on the Foundation website. Playhouse on Park presents Dandelion, April 25th to May 14th. It's adapted from the children's book by Don Freeman about a shy, awkward lion. Don't we all know a shy, awkward lion? This production is recommended for grades pre-K to 3. Your kids would love it. Tickets are $25. Children, students, seniors, and military receive a $2.50 discount. Go to Playhouse on Park. Restless Mountain Bluegrass Band Benefit Concert, April 28th, will take place at Playhouse on Park, BYOB, also on their website. Webster War of the Words will take place May 6th, virtual based, and there will be Arboretum will be on there. He missed it. Okay. This virtual word-based game show features 2 teams of celebrity contestants engaged in an entertaining battle of words and wit. And there'll be fabulous auction items starting at $25. That's all I had. Are there any other? Mr. Cortez, you have an announcement?
Yes, first of all, on behalf of West Hartford United Methodist Church, we would like to thank everyone that's been donating food throughout the year, and that serves the town of Cares and West Hartford, our food pantry. And we will be, we're still doing the diaper drive through the month of May. So you can just drop them off. There's a drop box outside the front door. The convenient thing is that there's an after-hour opportunity to drop something off when you can't come to the town and do so. So thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Any other announcements? All right. Without objection, I make a motion to adjourn. Are there any objections? Okay. We are adjourned. Good night, everybody.
Good night.